Hey guys, and welcome to the first ever FXhome live tutorial. Not our first live stream, we've done those before, but it's our first live tutorial. Today I'm going to be taking you through HitFilm's particle simulator and hopefully demystifying it a bit because it is a very complicated effect. I have the HitFilm program loaded up here, you'll see that in a second. But I'm also going to be answering your questions as they come in, so hopefully I can make the particle simulator seem a little bit more friendly. It is one of HitFilm's most complicated effects, but it is very, very powerful. So let's go ahead and jump into HitFilm here. I hope everything is working. There was a lot to set up, but I've got the computer, I've got my stand up here on camera. Hopefully the mic is working. I can see you guys as well in the computer, second computer monitor, because I have two. A bunch of windows open. Hopefully everything is working. We're going to find out in a few seconds. So here I am in HitFilm. I'm in a new project, and the first thing we're going to do is create a new composite shot, which is pretty standard. Let me just tell you a bit about what I'm going to be covering today. This is going to be a shorter live stream. It's going to be aiming for about 30 minutes or less, and the reason being is because I don't want to rattle on for an hour. Hopefully this is trying to make it as useful as possible for as many people as we can. So let me see the comments here. Okay, cool. Right, so let's go ahead and drag in the particle simulator effect down into the timeline. And I'll come into the controls panel as well. So, as I said earlier, the particle simulator has a lot of settings. There are a lot of drop-downs, a lot of menus, a lot of things you can change. And the first thing you need to do when you set up a particle simulation is figure out where the particles are coming from. And that's determined by the shape. So if I go into the shape properties, that's another drop-down. But you can see that HitFilm has several different types of shapes, and that's a point, circle, quad, excuse the noise outside, quad, sphere, cube, and layer. And let's see, point and quad are probably the ones I use the most, just because it works with the kind of work that I do here at FXhome. So let's see. The first thing I'll do is change this to a cube. So the shape determines where the particles are being generated. So a point is a single point in 3D space. The particles will all come from that single point. Here I have selected cube. That means the particles will be generated anywhere inside this 3D cube. So let me just rotate it around a bit here. And if you select the shape, you can see the cube. I'll go ahead and make it bigger. And you can see that when I hit play, the particles are spawning all around inside that cube. Cool. So I'm not going to be creating anything really specific here. It's kind of just going to be a walkthrough of some of the best practices and top tips that I've found over the years. Things to make it faster, things to make them more realistic, more varied, and kind of just a variety of things, hopefully, that can help everyone. Got a question here. Does it work on HitFilm Express? Yes, you can use the particle simulator in HitFilm Express. It will have a watermark if you haven't purchased the add-on. Speaking of, I've got a voucher code for the particle simulator pack. Haven't revealed it yet. I will be doing so at the end, but it will give you 50% off the 3D particles pack if you're using HitFilm Express. So stick around for that. That'll be at the end. You can use that on the FXhome store. The tricky thing about streaming by yourself is that I'm trying to read the comments, but I also can't stop talking. So I'm just going to move along. So once you've determined the shape of your particles, where they're coming from, the next thing you have to do is determine where they're going. And that is the trajectory. So it's the next one in the list, kind of like we designed it on purpose. Trajectory, for that one, I probably use cone the most. That pushes the particles in a specific direction. And you can see the difference between here is cone, and then there is random, which is what I just had. So I'll go ahead and leave it on cone. But you can see, similar to shape, there are several different options here. So cone is what we have now. Explode makes the particles go outwards from the center. Implode makes them go in towards the center. Disk is kind of a flattened disk shape. That one's a little bit tricky to understand. But random is random. And then target makes them move towards a specific place. But again, the one I use most is probably cone. So let's see. Just make sure I didn't forget anything here. If you want to read more about this, we do have a user guide online. It goes into a lot of detail. It's written by Axel, who you guys have seen on the channel before. it goes into detail for pretty much every single setting in the particle simulator. So if you're more of a reading person, if you want to get your instructions that way, even if you're not, I would recommend doing it because it is very detailed and it takes you through what every setting does basically, and that's super useful to have. So when you're working with the cone trajectory, you have this setting here called radius, and this is something that I adjust depending on the simulation I'm trying to get. So if I turn the radius down to 0, you'll notice that the particles move in completely straight lines. There's no variety in their path direction. If I increase radius back to 22, you can see they start to go a little bit off, kind of a little bit more natural looking.